Hey, this is Enaa, in within the fight back. I want to talk about something that came up quite some time ago, but has been on my mind for a while, and that is the terror, the French Revolutionary Terror, the horror of horrors, it seems. And if you've ever studied the French Revolution in history, you know it's probably one of the more contentious periods, to say the least. And it annoys me to no end that Robespierre is portrayed as some bloodthirsty psychopathic totalitarian. When you know what? There were actually two reigns of terror in France, as Mark Twain said. And I'm paraphrasing here. We had the one reign of terror that we always hear about of Maximilien Robespierre and his Jacobin Club, where suspected counter revolutionaries were guillotined, blood was up to their elbows, and so on and so forth. We all hear about that. We all know about that. Let me tell you something about the other reign of terror that Mark Twain reminds us of, and that lasted for 1,000 years. The poverty, the exploitation suffered by the peasants of France, the misery they went. Well, if you went to over to say Versailles, the royal palace, living in opulence and luxury, utter decadence, and we don't hear about that reign of terror where people starved and suffered by the millions. Instead, we hear about the reign of terror when finally the ordinary people actually strike back. And you know what? I could give a rat's ass a bunch of noble bastards who finally got it. You know that? Because we hear the revolution of France somehow went astray under the Jacobins. No, a revolution needs to be taken as far as it can go. Because if you're willing to compromise with the old order, if you're willing to compromise with feudalists and landlords and all that kind of scum, they're going to stay in power. They're just going to modify the system a little. No, you got to just wipe it clean. When the French Jacobins did it, they wiped the slate clean. When the Russian Bolsheviks, they're gone. The landlords, the capitalists, wiped away. And in China, after 1949, the landlord gentry was wiped away. You could call it a terror if you want, or you could call it finally getting rid of all the backwardness and the exploitation. So instead of talking about these so-called reigns of terror that perpetrated by revolutionaries, why don't we talk about the longer reigns of terror perpetrated by the established order? That strikes me as something that should generate a little more outrage.